she yelled. Whatever. You have 10 days to get out. After our lease disagreement, I said. Thanks for the notice. When she discovered I'd been the one actually paying rent through my property management company, 10 days became 10 minutes. But for her, I, 32 male, am writing this from a minimalist hotel room that feels more like home than my actual home has for the past week. It's quiet here. There's a sense of order. Back at my condo, there is a storm of chaos, denial, and shrieking rage named Sarah. And she has approximately 72 hours left before she becomes someone else's problem. We've been together for 2 years, living together for about 18 months. The condo is a beautiful 2-bedroom in a desirable part of the city. When we decided to move in together, Sarah took the lead on finding a place. She was fiercely independent, or at least that was the image she projected. She found the listing online. She was the one who corresponded with the property manager, a professional but distant man named Mr. Henderson, and she was the one who proudly presented me with the lease agreement. Here's the part she never knew. I own the building. It's not something I advertise. I bought the fourplex as an investment 5 years ago, long before I ever met Sarah, to keep things clean and professional, and to avoid being the guy my tenants call about a leaky faucet at 2 a.m. I have a property management company handle everything. Mr. Henderson and his team are the face of the ownership. They handle listings, maintenance, and rent collection. For all intents and purposes, they are the landlord. When Sarah found the listing for my own unit, it felt like a weirdly perfect but complicated scenario. I had a history of dating women who seemed more interested in my financial stability than in me as a person. I wanted a true partner, someone who would contribute equally because they believed in partnership, not because they were trying to secure a comfortable lifestyle. So I decided to let it play out. I set up a social experiment. I would be a co-tenant with her in my own apartment. She would send her half of the rent to Henderson's company, and I would send mine. What she didn't know was that Henderson's company had instructions to discreetly refund my portion back to my personal account at the end of each month. Her rent payments went into a separate account under my company's name, a fund I mentally earmarked as our joint savings, a nest egg for a future she didn't know we were already building in this strange, clandestine way. For 18 months it worked. She paid her half on time, every time. She took pride in handling the landlord, bragging to her friends about how she negotiated a fix for the dishwasher. I watched, quietly hopeful that I had finally found the real deal. Then came the lease renewal. To keep up appearances, Henderson sent us the standard paperwork, which included a modest, entirely reasonable 4% rent increase, in line with the market rate. I saw it and figured we'd sign it and move on. I was so wrong. Sarah saw the letter and exploded. 4%. That greedy pig Henderson. After we've been perfect tenants. This is outrageous, she fumed, pacing the living room. It's pretty standard, Sarah, I said calmly. It's only an extra $100 a month for each of us. It's the principle, she shot back. It's a slap in the face. I'm the one who found this place. I'm the one who deals with them. They can't just jack up the rent on me. You should be on my side. You should be fighting this for me. The argument simmered for weeks. She refused to sign. She saw it as a personal battle between her and the landlord, and she expected me to be her soldier. I refused, stating that it was a fair business practice. Her frustration grew, morphing into a bizarre sense of monarchical ownership over the apartment. It was her apartment, and the landlord was her subject, who needed to be put in his place. The final confrontation happened last Tuesday. Henderson's office had sent a final notice: sign the new lease within the week, or the renewal offer would be rescinded. I put the letter on the counter. We need to sign this, Sarah. She just stared at me with pure contempt. No, we don't. You clearly don't care that this landlord is trying to screw me over. You're weak. You won't fight for me. Fight for you against a standard rent increase. This is reality, Sarah. No, she screamed, her face red. This is my home. I chose it. I pay for it. And I don't want someone here who won't have my back. Whatever. You have 10 days to get out. The words hung in the air, vibrating with venom. She stood there, chest heaving, expecting me to argue, to plead, to finally give in. She had just tried to make me homeless over $100 principal. My test was over. She had failed spectacularly. The love I had felt was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I picked up my phone from the counter. Thanks for the notice, I said quietly. Her eyes widened in shock at my immediate compliance. What? That's it? You're just leaving? You gave me 10 days notice to vacate, I said, pulling up my notes app and typing. Today is Tuesday the 16th. That means I have until Friday the 26th at 5 p.m. Just confirming. Yes. Get out, she stammered, trying to regain her footing. Okay, I said. Then I walked into the bedroom and started packing a suitcase. She thought she had won. She thought she was kicking me out of her apartment. She had no idea she had just served her own eviction notice. The first call I made was to Mr. Henderson. Henderson, I said, stepping out onto the balcony. We have a situation in Unit 4. Miss Albright has just given me a verbal notice to vacate in 10 days. I am accepting her notice and will not be renewing the lease. Please prepare the relevant paperwork. Understood, he replied. All business. What about her? Her status as an occupant is contingent on my tenancy. Since I am vacating at her request, her right to occupy is terminated. Please draw up a formal notice to vacate for her, effective the same date and time. And Henderson, please transfer the full balance of the rent account back to her, every penny she ever paid. The memo should read, full refund of all non-binding personal payments, no tenancy established. Consider it done, he said. The bomb was armed. The timer was set. The days that followed were the most surreal of my life. Sarah treated me like a ghost, swaggering around the apartment with a triumphant smirk. She took loud phone calls with her friends, openly celebrating. He's finally gone. I heard her crowing. I stood up for myself, and he just folded. Now I can finally decorate this place the way I want. Meanwhile, I was a quiet machine of logistics. I rented a storage unit. While she was at work, I methodically moved my things. The apartment grew emptier, but she was too blinded by her victory to notice. The first tremor hit on day 6. I was at my office when I got a string of panicked texts from her. Did you see my bank account? There's a huge deposit from Henderson's company. What is this? It says refund of non-binding payments. What does that mean? Liam, call me. I ignored them. The real earthquake struck an hour later. A frantic, almost unintelligible voicemail. Liam, I just spoke to Henderson. He said I have to be out by Friday. He said I'm not on the lease, that I was just an occupant. He said, you own the building. This is a joke, right? This is some sick, twisted joke. Call me back right now. Henderson had executed his task perfectly. He had calmly and professionally dismantled her entire worldview. He explained her status as a permitted occupant, her rights tied entirely to mine. He explained that her rent had been refunded in full, as the owner was not claiming her as a tenant. And then, the final twist of the knife. And just so we're clear, Miss Albright, the owner of the property is in fact Mr. Liam Davies. When you ordered him to vacate his own property, you effectively terminated your own residency. I didn't go home that night. My phone was a nuclear wasteland of abusive texts and pleading voicemails. She had spent a week gloating about kicking me out. Now, with 4 days to go, she realized she hadn't just kicked me out. She had kicked herself out. The confrontation when I returned the next day was even worse than I'd imagined. The moment I walked in, she flew at me, her face blotchy from crying, her eyes wild. You lied to me, she shrieked. You let me believe we were partners. This was all some sick game. I never lied to you once, Sarah, I said, my voice unnaturally calm. You never asked who owned the building. You assumed. You built an entire reality in your head, where you were the queen of this castle, and I was just living in it. You enjoyed the feeling of power. Her anger dissolved into desperate, pathetic pleading. I didn't mean it, Liam. I was angry. I love this apartment, but I love you more. Please don't kick me out. The mask had melted off, revealing the terrified, entitled core underneath. No, I said, pulling my arm away. It's over. The person you were last week, the one who tried to throw me out on the street without a second thought, that's the real you. Your apology only comes now because you're facing a consequence. The 10 days you gave me are the 10 days you have. On Friday, D-Day, I arrived with Henderson to do a final walkthrough. The place was a disaster. Sarah was frantically throwing her belongings into garbage bags. Her parents there, to move their 30-year-old daughter back into her childhood bedroom. As they hauled the last bag out, Sarah stopped at the door and gave me one last hateful glare. I hope you're happy, she spat. I'm at peace with my decision, I replied calmly. At 5:01 p.m., a locksmith changed the locks. I stood in the doorway of my empty, silent, and finally truly my home. The sense of relief was overwhelming. I heard through the grapevine that the humiliation of moving back home was devastating for her. She had burned all her bridges. Her social circle fractured when the true, absurd story came out. She still complains about how I tricked her, a perpetual victim of a mess entirely of her own making. My revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet and procedural. It was the simple, logical consequence of her own actions. She yelled, "You have 10 days to get out." She thought she was wielding a sword, but she was really just falling on it.